So I'm really excited to be here with everyone. My name's Katrina Padron. I'm the founder of North Star HQ. We're a marketing agency that uniquely sits at the intersection of marketing and technology. But what's really exciting for today is we've been doing this podcast series called Standing Out, and we've done about 85 episodes. But for summer and leading up to summer, we thought it would be fun to actually switch the podcast format and do a Facebook Live. And I'm so excited because Carisa, the founder of Tilr, is here. Carisa's been on our podcast before and really comes to us with an experience in growing companies, not only Tilr, but previously. And I'll just share a little bit about her. As a veteran thought leader and technology pioneer, Carisa has spent her career at the forefront of developing and introducing technological recruitment solutions. As a CEO and co-founder of Tilr, Carisa drives both strategic vision and day-to-day execution with relentless energy and unwavering focus that basically ignites internal team passion and demands industry attention. So, Carisa, I'm super excited to have you here. Thanks for joining.
It's an absolute honor to be with you today and so fun to see you again. Thank you very much for having me on the first ever Facebook Live event.
And isn't this fun?
It's a blast. I'm already having a blast.
I can't wait. Carisa and I got to have a little pre-show fun as we were having a tech issue. So that gave us good entertainment for the last 10 minutes.
Absolutely. A bit of a pre-party, if you will.
Right. So, okay. So this topic is all around going for growth. So I'd love to hear your insights, not only from your current company, but I know that you have a lot of experience from Career Builder also. And I'd love to hear how you pull that in to help your current company grow. So the first question that we have is, how do you know which path is the right path to grow? So we all have like different business models, and how do you know whether it's channel partners that you should go explore or licensing agreements, or what is your feedback and thoughts on that?
You're going like right for the tough ones right away. I like it. We're right into it. And I don't know if this answer will appease the audience or frighten everyone, but I'm not sure that even as a really practiced founder, you ever know for sure that you've hit the path exactly. I think there's a couple core principles we have to stop and talk about that can give us the best information to get us on the best track today. But the first thing I'd like to say is that the average successful startup goes through 3 to 4 pivots before they actually arrive at their true destination. And I think pivot sometimes is thought of as this scary bad word, like, oh my gosh, I almost failed, I had to pivot. But pivot is actually just an intentional action that's meant to make a correction. And so I think it's very common that a dedicated founder on a good track that's going to get to absolute success makes some tweaks or some intentional corrections 2, 3, 4 times before they think, wow, this is really the path. But in order to really guide you to the best path, and the path that you should start on, I really think that you have to pay attention to something you're passionate about. And that's because going down any path as an entrepreneur or growing a startup from a startup to a really scaling organization takes so much energy and intensity, and not just once or for a week or a year, but every day, day in and day out, that if you don't have that natural passion to ignite you, you may find that you don't have the energy or the grit to pursue the path. And even when you're on the exact right path, the secret, I'm sure, as you know, behind any entrepreneur is you're always asking yourself, am I on the right path? Is this the right path?
Right. And even when you're growing, you say that too. It's like, but should I be growing faster? Or,
no, that's it. And I think sometimes the things that you say no to so you can stay focused on that core path when you find it are just as important as the decisions that you make to sign that next partnership or move faster into different territories. And I should probably listen to myself more often.
We all, oh my gosh, I think we're all in that boat. But I love what you're saying about pivot. And pivot doesn't have to be a negative thing, but pivot can really be viewed as a positive thing that we all just have to do, and a super common thing, because I think you really hit it, that we hear pivot as, oh my gosh, I almost failed, and then I pivoted and something amazing happened, rather than pivot is just a part of it.
It is a part of it. And, I've had some great coaches that have really encouraged me to have pivot parties where every 6 months as an executive team, you get together either after work or on a weekend or maybe over a long lunch, and you say, do we have a perfect product market fit? What is product market fit? And if it's not, yes, we have raving fans, more customers than we can take care of, we've got to hire to keep up. The answer is, even if you're doing great, you could challenge yourself to do a little bit better. So what intentional course of action can you take to improve those results just a bit? And it's a pivot party. At Tilr, we really just had our first pivot party about 6 months ago. And we were probably about 1.5 years late, but we made some great intentional corrections that allowed us to expand through our end of year footprint by the first month of the second quarter. I had to think where we were in the year there.
Right, I know.
But now, we're really learning, let's just make it part of our culture. We don't want our team to be afraid of it. We want it to be exciting. We want to rally around it and always challenge ourselves to be better than we were yesterday. So I think you're looking at it.
And how fun does pivot party sound? I mean, that just sounds like so positive and so intentionally focused on growth, rather than, oh my gosh, we have to pivot. Like, that is such a reframing. So thanks for sharing that.
Well, that's it. And if you're growing properly, you're going to have new criteria to think about, new information to consider in terms of what your next step should be. And, there's all these silly things that I say all the time, but I stop and ask myself why. What you're doing today won't get you to where you want to get tomorrow, or however it's phrased exactly, but it's really true. So you have to ask yourself, with more customers or with a larger territory, what do we have to do differently in order to continue this acceleration and not plateau?
Yeah, no, and what do we have to do differently to continue the acceleration? That's awesome. So some of the listeners, I feel like we all kind of go down our different paths, and we're always trying to explore, because one of the biggest challenges, I think, in going for growth is sales and process. Two of the biggest challenges, sales and processes. So first, one of the questions we got for this going for growth is, what percentage of revenue comes from solicitations, like responding to RFPs, versus what percentage should come from outbound efforts? Do you have thoughts on that?
So I think that in the beginning of most startups, about 100% of your revenue comes from outbound effort. In my experience anyways, and maybe that's because I grew up being a salesperson and really learned how to build businesses under other umbrellas before I started building my own companies. But what I've always been taught is, as fast as you can sell, you can grow. Meaning, if you're able to sell a deal and make a profit, you have the right to hire another person or do some more marketing. And it's through that mature balance of building through revenue growth and sometimes profit, or sometimes with a startup model, you may not be looking to break even, but rather you're working to hit certain milestones so you can reinvest and grow faster, that you start to realize what the right balance is going to be for you. So now, we went into the market in beta really in the summer of 2016, open market truly just in 2017. And it's now that we're starting to have people seeking us out, or really responding to our self-service channel after 2 years of outbound sales. And even now, perhaps it's a 40-60 split, with 60% still that outbound effort. But I would just like to challenge the listeners to think as outbound, not only as traditional sales, but also as marketing communication, social media and community efforts, all of the work that you're doing to really, what I like to call socialize your brand with your target audience, so it becomes part of their way of life and not an advertisement or a cold call, if that makes sense.
Right. I have this personal intrigue and fascination with this RFP process, because what I like about it is that they tell you what they need, when they need it, they give you the budget, like so much of the mystery is taken out of it. But as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, one of my frustration points is so many companies, particularly corporations, have a list of people that RFP goes out to. And my question is, how do you get on that list? You know?
That's a great question. And RFPs can be really powerful.
Yeah.
You know, we've had a lot of experience with RFPs at Tilr as an early organization. And I think that probably comes from my executive team's ties and relationships from prior industries. But that doesn't mean that we automatically get on any list at all. We've got to struggle like anyone else.
Right.
So one of the first things that you can do is simply apply to be an approved vendor to bid. If you're looking at a state RFP or a government RFP, there are simply processes that exist to apply as a vendor to be approved so that you can bid. Another great way to do it is to partner with someone that's leading as an approved vendor that of course you believe in, that you're proud to partner with. Those things are, I think, assumed and in the backbone, but to become part of their team that's allowed to present fully, and that's been productive for us as well. I also think that once you have one successful RFP win, it's all of a sudden, for some magical reason, much easier.
The secret. Yeah, no.
That's it. That's it. And another way, although this is a hard thing for entrepreneurs to hear, is that oftentimes if you're a vendor, meaning you've sold something that's not within the RFP, at a lower scale, you're approved to do business with that organization, you're looked more fondly upon. A couple other things to consider are, do you qualify for any of the things that the RFP is calling favorable? Perhaps they're looking for a minority-owned business, perhaps they're looking for small businesses. Is there anything that you can highlight about who you are and your unique characteristics and the DNA of your organization that make you perhaps more relevant than another organization that may have a larger brand? But RFPs, we have a love-hate relationship with them because, like you said, they're very clear.
They're so clear you want to love them, and then they're so
rigid.
Right. That it's like, it's an interesting blend. Okay, so let's talk about process. That's kind of the other big bucket. So the question is, how do I know if one of my processes is broken and preventing me from scaling?
What a great question. Also something that's hard to diagnose. You know, it comes down to isolation, like figuring out whether or not most things are really productive or not. You want to isolate them. Now, what's difficult as an entrepreneur with a delicate new business is you don't want to strip away other processes that may be working very well for you in that quest to really isolate. But if I'm catching you early on in your quest, one thing to do is, as you build the process around either your service or product or technology that you're delivering, as you try new things, if you can try only one at a time and really benchmark where you were at before you layered it and see the difference, you'll be able to kind of catch it in real time. Now, if you're like me, you go big or go home and build for scale, well, then that's going to be an important question to answer. And we've, really adopted a best practice at Tilr, where kind of like a pivot party, but not quite as intense on a quarterly basis. We look not only at always the amazing ideas in the queue of how we could do things better, but also what results our current processes are producing. And if we see any dip, whether it be positive or negative, that is a clue for us to zone in that specific process. Mm-hmm. Is it working as it did? It's either better, so we should replicate it or automate it or do it more, or for some reason, whether it be with a bigger team or a bigger footprint, it's just really falling short now. And we need to then, so you can for sure know if it's broken or not, stop doing it in one place or for one day or with one group of clients and do what you think you should be doing instead before you change the whole tool.
I love that. Just do the one thing for a short period of time with one group of people rather than the big overhaul. Because I do, like, to me, I mean, I don't know if it's for everyone. I fall more into the creative bucket, less into the process bucket. So everything like, oh, that needs a process feels so scary to me. Whereas, you tell process people like, oh, I need a logo, and that's terrifying. So it's kind of the reverse of that. But I love that, just the one little thing. We don't need to overhaul the whole thing. Just let's test a little bit and see what happens. That's great.
Absolutely. And I love like very practical answers. So just to give an example of that, right now as a more mature scaled organization, we're testing some new pricing models that we think will be more favorable to our clients. We're testing them either with legacy clients that have expressed a desire to try a different model, or in new territories where we haven't tested the other model in a very isolated capacity to see the response. And at the end of the day, we want to cater to what our clients prefer. And so we'll learn from that, but we certainly didn't say, hey, we think that our pricing schedule is a bit immature, and now that we've scaled a bit, we should look at changing it. Let's change it for every legacy client and every new client in the world, and encode the back end and do all these things. We want to learn first and then make company-wide decisions.
So smart. Okay, so our last question is, how do you scale into a new market? Like, who do you talk to? How do you identify the markets? What tips do you have on new markets?
Such a great question also. These are really powerful questions. We learned in our first year of business that answering that question is so important, that as we earn the right to scale and add people to our team, we actually listened to an internal business plan from one of our team members and promoted him to VP of Growth to build out a team, a small team, but a team of individuals that really focus on answering these questions. The tough answer is it's different in every market, every state, every city. The good answer is that you can develop certain tools or a bucket of tools that you can use repeatedly in the same way to do it differently in each market. So depending on your product or service or your target market, one of the first things that anyone can do in any industry is rely on social media. It's still a productive tool today. Facebook ads, although they like to change their algorithm all the time, do work.
We know.
Still today, down to a specific target. If you have a budget for AdWords, these basic things work. But to give you a few creative ideas, one of the things that we have found really works is dovetailing onto live events that are happening in the community, ideally positive events. So what's the season look like? If you are an event company and you want to break into New Orleans or Orlando, how do the seasons flow? When are the most popular events that align with your organization? And how can you start to create content and share it, be it via social channels or even maybe by going there live and trying to get involved in some of the events with things that are going to enrich your audience life, to build trust and awareness, even if it's not, hey, find your next candidate with Tilr in Orlando. If we know that hiring is really hard in the summer season because it's just the biggest tourist season, how do we supplement the needs of HR leaders outside of just that hiring? What other knowledge can we share them during that time to prepare them for that heavy season is an example of how we would think about it. Also, webinars. Webinars are such a great way to work into a new community. If you're there live, silly things like putting up posters for webinars in places where you're allowed. Please don't get arrested. Or going to coffee shops. Really important business people hang out in coffee shops all the time. There's a big trend to get out of the office and into the world. Co-working spaces are great places in a new market to ask whether it be virtually or live for 15 minutes to give some free refreshments and talk to the people in your business. And, the way we look at it is how many productive people do you need in a market to justify the market? Or if people isn't the right metric, what revenue do you need to see, or sales or units in that market in order to really call it successful for you and give you the right to go into another one? And then how do you plant the seeds to grow that? And can you shorten it each time as you move into the next market? So hopefully some blanket ideas, but also some really grassroots things that you can do if you're not working with a big budget, which like most entrepreneurs, you're likely not, at least in the beginning.
Trying to figure it all out. No, I love that. And it is so interesting how many of like how much of an impact events can have, like, and dovetailing on what already exists, because I think as entrepreneurs, our go-to is always create something new, right? Like so many of us are just visionaries and creators, but there's so much value in seeing what's already there and taking that toolkit that you created and, you know, filling out the form or questionnaire or whatever it is to really get your insight and information.
You got it. And it could be
That's
a
awesome.
community group. It doesn't have to be an event. It could be like business people that get together every Tuesday. You know, all these things are powerful. And then when you have the budget, you can hire a really smart chief marketing officer or VP of marketing and allow them to build a big fancy campaign across the world.
Right, right.
Until then, while you're scrappy,
That's
it's an idea. So yeah, that's right.
That's good. Carissa, that was amazing. Thanks for being here. That was so fun and insightful.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for having me on your first ever live Facebook event. It's really an honor. And as always, I learned so much from the questions from both you and the audience. So it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Great honor.
You're welcome, truly.